What's up, guys? Welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/ProRevenge. Alrighty, this story is called I Got Fired and Went After the Boss's Money, His Hotel, and His Marriage. Back when I was still in university, I used to work for a hotel to make ends meet. When I started, the hotel very urgently needed new personnel, so I cut a deal with the old owner about getting to choose and pick shifts, so I could visit my courses and exams. Speaking some extra foreign languages, I also got a nice little bonus each month on top. The old owner was a great guy. He owned multiple houses, so I rarely saw him. But when he was in the house, he always made a point to have drinks with the staff, chat with us, and if we were free, he even invited those of the front desk to fancy restaurants who were not on shift. Fast forward, I had worked in the hotel for a few years now and was nearing the completion of my studies, so it wouldn't have been an eternity until I had to quit anyway, as I was of course more interested to work in my field of study. As part of my deal with the old owner, I mostly chose to work night shifts, allowing me to visit my courses at university during the day. To make up for my privileges, I had picked up the habit of doing some extra work in the dead of night other shifts would normally have to do, when on contrast, I could have sat around and stared at the wall. People were grateful for the help in the beginning, and we became a rather tight-knit group. But over time, people rotated in and out. When the old owner retired and his butthole of a son took over the business as the new owner, I already feared the worst. The new owner didn't like me very much, and I never found out the exact reason for that one. I was, at that point, nearly the sole veteran left from when I started. Among the tasks I had taken on was doing light clerical tasks to ease the manager's job in the morning. For that, I generally had to use the manager's network account. One night while doing my lists, I logged into the manager's accounts and email to do my job. Then I saw an email with my name in the subject line. I know, it's not nice to snoop, but of course I read it. Turns out, the new owner wanted to get rid of me. I still had my old employee contract with the bonuses for foreign language abilities and was allowed by my contract to pick and choose shifts. I can only assume these privileges are what made the new owner hate me. No idea if he had other reasons, because to be honest, these seem very weak to me, but he couldn't fire me without cause. On top of that, I would be owed severance if fired, and generally, there were not enough bodies in the shift rotation without me. Though the new owner didn't seem to understand that point, as the emails told me. I looked for more emails concerning me and found them. There was an email chain between some of the employees, the manager, and the new owner. I was, of course, not CC'd as I was the hated topic. The employees didn't like me hogging the night shifts, because those paid better and for every night you worked, you got paid the night bonus. The manager was the only one rather neutral on the matter and just curbed their enthusiasm to get rid of me, as they needed me to be fully staffed. The new owner and my colleagues actively conspired to make a hostile work environment so I would quit of my own volition. I was furious. I thought about a variety of reactions, from egging their cars to burning down the hotel. But I settled on a less crazy method of revenge. I called my uncle at 2 a.m. asking for advice. My uncle is a lawyer, so for the sake of proof, I forwarded myself all the emails. I made photos, printed them out, made copies, and filmed the whole ordeal just to be sure. My uncle told me to sit tight and see if things got worse, or if it was just a bluster. And so I gave it a few days, and things did take a turn. Snide remarks about my looks, clothing, and so on were only the tip of the iceberg. Some of the colleagues were just as professional as before, but the conspirators always left extra work for me or pawned off the crap duties they normally had to do on me. I always kept a spare shirt and suit at work just to have a change, which suddenly disappeared. One guy even started to threaten me with violence, but I kept clenching my butt cheeks. I would not give them the satisfaction of saving on the severance or giving in. I am a big boy after all. I did, however, stop doing any extra work I was not obligated to do, which in the end was the reason they used to fire me. They still had to pay me severance. The next day, my uncle, with bundled proof of the email and all the documented harassment by my colleagues, served the hotel my lawsuit. It started with wrongful termination and ended with harassment. Reportedly, the manager went white as a sheet when he realized where the emails must have come from. The new owner had been on vacation and had to cancel his expensive vacation in France to deal with this. Their counsel advised them to settle, so I accepted my severance and a hefty bonus on top. enough money to last me until the end of university without work. But that was not all my revenge. I had gone after the new owner's money, but in the next step, I went after the hotel. I had used all the spare time during night shifts alone to document every last violation of city, council, district, state, and federal law I could find. That went from minor things like some harmless mold under the kitchen sink to substantial violations like modifications to the building. The building was under a limited form of historical protection by federal law, on the ground of being built and inhabited by somewhat important historical figures a few hundred years back. So every renovation or change in floor plans needs to be signed off on by a committee, which can take ages. There is also a grant paid to the new owner by the government for keeping the building intact as it is. So with my uncle's help, I sent documentation of every violation I could find to the corresponding agency. In 1 month, everything from health, building code, fire safety to the finance and work police crawled over the hotel. In the end, it was the building and fire inspectors that shut the place down. The new owner had done substantial renovations to the top floor luxury apartments, which he used when he was in town. So the new owner had to pay back the grant, pay fines for unauthorized alterations to the building, endangering his guests because something wasn't built right according to the fire code, and had to close down shop until the building was fixed. I also tipped off a friend who had studied journalism and worked at a local paper. The paper ran an article on all the violations accumulated, which tanked the business once it had reopened, as the newspaper article had led to horrible reviews. In the end, to afford all the fines, repayments, and building costs, the new owner sold the hotel. As the cherry on top, all the buttholes who had tried to harass me out lost their job. Granted, the people who didn't do anything to me lost their jobs too, but didn't do anything to stand up for me or help me either, so I don't feel too much remorse. And the revenge cherry on top was that the new owner, whenever he was in town, used to bring home escorts, which in my country is not illegal, but he was married. It took some doing to get that information to the new owner's wife, but one of my former colleagues, who had quit before all this had happened, had her email. So I let her know what the new owner was up to when he was out of town. I don't know what exactly happened, but they did divorce in the end. Make of that what you will. Okay, I'm not trying to defend anyone here, but wouldn't all those emails be considered illegally obtained evidence because he was snooping? Okay, well, they aren't from America, so maybe the laws are different, but that part of this story is just kinda iffy, but who cares? Good story. This guy was thorough. This story's called, Don't Send Nudes on Your Company Phone. If you do, don't tell anyone about it. If you do, make sure you don't tell someone who doesn't like you. If you do, delete the nudes before you hand in your phone to the IT department. So I used to work for this man named Michael. Michael was a sycophantic yes man who had no real life skills required for our job, but faked it well for a few years. When I was hired, Michael was the regional manager. Though he was very friendly to me in the days leading up to me joining, he was apparently telling all of the employees that I was only hired to come in and clean house, that I was not to be trusted, and that everyone should go to only him for everything. It took me a few months for people to realize that I wasn't the monster he set me up to be, and that I was there to help. Once the employees knew I wasn't a bad guy, they came to me for everything. Michael did not like this. Skip forward a few years, there's been some pettiness and some clashing, but Michael and I are at a point where we can work together civilly and generally stay out of one another's way. Unbeknownst to me, Michael was very much not doing his job, and the company decided to hire someone to replace him, Charles. However, because my company believes in second chances, Michael was allowed to step down to a lesser role. Charles came in and he and I clicked right away, and Michael faded into the background. Now, Michael's wife was not very impressed with this demotion. Some bad crap went down, fights were had, and finally a divorce was announced. Michael decided that at the ripe old age of 45, he was going to jump right into the online dating world. He had a new date every 2 or 3 days and was constantly bragging about the girls he was going out with, but never seemed to realize that he only ever had first dates. No one apparently wanted a second. During this freewheelin' free-for-all, Michael apparently met a girl on Plenty of Fish. They hadn't met, but were talking and flirting all day, every day. After about 2 weeks of Plenty of Fish girl, Michael started complaining about money. He'd be on the phone with some company or another paying a late bill or setting up a payment plan. He would ask ask constantly if we could order pizza for one of the teams and then eat that. He started looking pretty bedraggled. One of Michael's female friends from work started complaining to me that Michael was always asking her for money. When I asked why, she said Michael was sending money and paying bills for this Plenty of Fish girl. I was a little surprised. They had never met. He didn't have much money to begin with, and lending money is always a weird situation. The friend later told me that Michael had sent some suggestive photos to the girl and that she was holding them over his head. This didn't really sit right with me. I mean, he's not married, he's not famous, he's not high-powered, so what could this girl ruin in his life? The only thing he has is this job. That's when it clicked. Plenty of Fish girl had to be someone from work. Around this time, I got a spam email telling me that the sender had explicit photos and videos of me, had been tracking my phone, knew what type of porn I watched, and had hacked into my camera to watch me while I watched it. Such videos and pictures do not exist, and I'm not a grubby teenager. If I'm gonna watch porn, I'm watching it on my TV and making a night out of it. The sender threatened to release the evidence if I didn't send $700 to some account they had. I knew right away that it was spam, so I gave my phone and computer to IT to make sure there were no viruses. After getting the all clear, I decided to have some fun. I went into Michael's office, which he shared with 2 other managers, and shut the door. I told them that I was really freaked out that someone was blackmailing me and didn't know what to do. I gave Michael my phone so he could read the email, and his face turned white. He looks up at me, eyes wide, and whispers, "Oh my God, you too?" I asked what he was talking about, and he told me that someone had stolen pictures from his phone and was threatening him, and that he'd already sent them money. I kept a straight face and said, "Oh my God, that's horrible! You should give your phone and computer to IT to see if it's a virus and if they can track anything down." This man jumped right the fridge up. He bolted into IT and told them he thought he had a virus on his phone and handed it over. I about died. Over that weekend, we received an email asking us to bring in any company-issued phones or computers for an antivirus update. I didn't think much of it, made sure I had my stuff, and reported to work on Monday morning. When I went to turn in my stuff, my manager laughed and said it wasn't necessary. I asked why. Apparently, the email had been a ruse so that Michael would bring in his equipment. Y'all, when IT searched his company phone that day, he asked them if he had a virus. They found pictures, videos, you name it, of Michael. They looked at the texts and emails and realized it wasn't spam, and that the name on the email accounts he had sent money to was shockingly similar to the name of one of our employees. Michael had been finessed, catfished, bamboozled by an employee. He was fired that day for misuse of company equipment. If you hadn't tried to get me fired 3 years ago, Michael, I wouldn't have screwed you over with what I knew was spam, and you'd probably still have a job. Edit! I don't know who the employee was who was blackmailing him. I know it was female, and I know the person doesn't work here any longer, but that's it. I don't have enough clearance to know who it was. I do not condone blackmailing and absolutely think she should have been terminated. I just don't have details on her. Edit 2! Wow, the Men's Rights Brigade has found the comment section. Y'all, I am not Michael's boss, nor have I ever been Michael's boss. I had no power or control over whether the man got fired, nor was that my intention. My intention was to mess with him over a coincidental email I received. I left out the part where I approached the manager and told him that I thought Michael was being blackmailed and that I thought it might be from an employee. I gave as many details as I could, but since I had no evidence and Michael never approached the manager, they couldn't do anything about it. I don't like the guy, but I'm not rooting for him to be blackmailed, and I did what I could to try and fix that part, being that he never told me himself it was happening. This story is about how a man screwed with me for years, decided to send peen pics from his company device, how I got a spam email somewhat similar to what was going on, and how Michael took that knowledge to turn himself in for misuse of company equipment. It's not about me going out of my way to get someone fired for a 3-year grudge. It's not about me blackmailing him. It's not about me kicking a man while he's down. Okay, I'm glad that clarification was included because I was thinking the Redditor here was the jerk in the situation. Okay, not the jerk, but a jerk. But yes, guys, please make sure your company hardware is clear of your hardware. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.